Welcome back, everybody, to Waterbox Live. What's up, fish heads?
There we go. All right.
Follow me and Jess.
Staple, so.
Yeah, follow me and Jess there on Instagram. You can also follow the official Instagram as well.
You should.
Yes.
Facebook, Instagram, all of it.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna weigh 2 Waterbox shirts today. You have to be active in the comments, ask questions, talk to each other, whatever. That is the currency to win.
Yep.
And we'll be taking questions later, so definitely just drop them in there and we pull them as we go.
Yep, for sure. Again, smash the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe, hit the notification bell.
Yep.
We are here every week. We come here live so that we can help you guys live with any questions you have.
Yep.
We usually have some pretty cool topics. We give stuff away, so it's a win-win.
It's a good one, and today, so we're going to be adding more coral to the INFINIA. About 2 weeks ago, we added our first batch over. Everything's doing good. We also want to talk about testing and how to get started testing and dosing once you're adding corals.
They go hand in hand.
They do, and
Yeah.
so we're going to cover that. And it's kind of those things where like you can't just look at the bottle, and it does kind of. They always give you like a basic direction that this much per gallon. It doesn't really work that way. You're gonna end up with levels all over the place. So you do want to kind of fine tune your system as you start adding corals in to keep it consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So your levels of like calcium, alkalinity, and magnesium being consistent in your aquarium when you have corals is super important for the health and increased growth and all of that. So we're gonna kind of give a little step-by-step guideline.
Your mic's down.
My mic is down. All right.
Yeah, that's one of the things that calcium alk mag is one of the biggest things that I think is the most important to know before keeping corals, because they really determine much of your success with corals. When I was first getting into the hobby, I didn't pay too much attention to it, and the tank suffered because of it. And then once I finally dialed those in, the game totally changed. I mean, the tank was so much more healthy, and then also magnesium being on top of that. If your magnesium is not where it needs to be, the other ones suffer.
Yeah, your calcium won't work the correct way. So, can we hear me now? Am I good?
Mic check.
All right. I'm not all. Whatever. I'm not. So,
Jess sounds like she's underwater. Very, very accurate.
all right, I'm out from the water. We're good. Okay, so about testing and dosing. First thing, have a good quality test kit.
Yeah.
Don't cheap out on your alkaline, calcium, magnesium, because you're going to get inconsistent results. So you want to go with a good test kit. So there's quite a few on the market. Pick your favorite, and go with that. So you want to make sure that you're using the same brand of test kit each time, and that it's a good quality one. So that's your first point. Get a good kit. And then what you want to do is basically, as you are about to add corals or when you first add them, is you're going to test your water, and it's going to give you your baseline. So you're going to test your calcium, alkaline, magnesium. This is your starting point. And then about 2 or 3 days later, test those levels again with no dosing in between. And what you're looking for is how much are those levels dropping. And you can kind of then figure, okay, if it dropped 15 points in calcium, your daily uptake is around 5.
Yeah.
You want to spread this out to be every few days and not daily, because it can vary and it might not give you an accurate enough change in one day. So 2 to 3 days later, you're going to check, see how much they've dropped. And then you can calculate with whatever brand additive you're using, how much it says to add for like that increase. Every brand is different. Some are stronger, some are more diluted. So you want to go based upon per gallon, how much you add to bring it up based upon your daily. So it's going to be a little bit of a kind of guessing back and forth for a little bit. And that's why you want to do it in the beginning before you have a ton of corals in there and you end up kind of having your levels jumping around too much.
Right. And what about logging all this data so that you know where you were, right?
Yes, it's your friend. Excel works great for it. I have a big Excel workbook that is every single tank, dosing, dates, testing, water change, media change, a little bit of everything, because time flies. So you're like, if you're supposed to test once a week and you realize it passed, or like media needs to be changed ever so frequently, suddenly you're 2 months and you don't even realize it. So Excel or something similar. I know there's some apps for the phone.
Yeah,
that
there's
kind of
definitely
log
some
stuff.
apps
I don't know
that you
how
can use.
good those are. I've never really used them.
Yeah, Excel's cool if you're proficient in Excel too, because I can imagine like you're logging all the the elements, calcium alk mag over time, and
Yeah.
you could even easily create charts to see,
Yeah.
what kind of fluctuations they
I'm
have.
not
There's
that good
apps
at
that
Excel. I just use little boxes. But it gives me, I also play as a note where I kind of note, like, did I adjust calcium and alkalinity? Was this with a water change in between? That kind of stuff. So, and you will find like water changes will replenish some of these elements. But as you are adding corals, you want to make sure that you're making up for any difference with the dosing.
What's your suggestion for someone that loathes testing?
I loathe testing.
I do too.
I
but
personally
it's so
do not
critical.
enjoy testing one little bit, and I test like 7 tanks once a week, roughly, for all of the things, and you just do it.
Yeah.
I do not like testing whatsoever.
There's some things that you can, I guess, automate, right? There's some probes on the market that will get you some elements.
Yeah.
But
I mean, there's some, some things that'll do some of the testing for you, probes that'll read some levels, that kind of stuff. You've got digital test kits. You can use it a little bit easier maybe than the drops, but I found that I like the drop and mix
titration
ones
yeah.
versus the electric ones, just because I've found that the electric tend to have a little bit of inconsistency. So I actually switched back to titrant versions and have been very happy, very consistent, and they're easy to do. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely chart it. Keep an eye on it. You'll see any trends, that kind of stuff. So once you kind of figured out what your every few day uptake is, break it down by day, take that dosing amount based upon the additive you use and start dosing that daily. And then once again, 2 or 3 days, check it, test everything again. And what you want to see ideally is that the levels haven't really changed. If it is, it's a very small amount.
Yeah.
And that means you've hit what your uptake is to dosing for that time being. If it's gone too high or it's dropped too much, adjust accordingly in small amounts. And this is why you're going to have, it's not a perfect science. It's going to be up and down a little bit. Do it before you have any real sensitive corals in there. And then once you've kind of, after a couple rounds of every 2 or 3 days, those testing and it's consistent, kind of go to once a week. But you don't want to slack off much longer than a week or 2 in between testing because your uptake will change a lot.
Yeah.
As your corals grow, you add more corals in there, you're going to see more fluctuation. So you're going to have to adjust that dosing amount pretty regularly. And also, if you're doing water changes, key thing is use a salt that has levels very similar to what you keep your tank as. So if you do a water change, you're not suddenly, your hot levels jumped up or they jump down, then you have to fine tune that dosing schedule again. So those are all key things. But getting that level to stay consistent day to day is going to pay you back so much in color and health and growth of your corals.
Tremendously.
And if I had to say one thing, the most important is going to be the alkalinity.
Yeah.
Your calcium and your magnesium, they can go like this, technically, and it's not a big deal. If your alkalinity is fluctuating a lot per day or throughout the week, your corals will suffer, especially if you start getting into harder corals.
Yeah.
So alkalinity is like the #1 important thing.
Cool.
So gives you a good start point. Test, log it, dose, repeat until
Not
it's kind
the
of
most
consistency.
exciting part for a lot of people about having an aquarium, but absolutely necessary. You have to keep up on it.
Yep.
It's going to be a little bit more tedious early on, but like you said, once a week, once you've dialed everything in.
Not too bad.
And
once it's real established, I mean, you sure could do every 2 weeks for testing. And you're not really adding too much. It's consistent. And, as soon as I'm adding corals to a tank is when I start that whole system. I make sure, of course, before corals go in, that everything's within range. But that's as soon as you start adding anything is when kind of start that process of testing and dosing regularly. Just so you get a handle on it, and then once you move into a little bit harder to keep corals, you've already got everything rolling and really consistent. So there's the not fun stuff of having a reef tank, but the fun stuff is we get to add some corals over to the INFINIA.
Sweet. If you guys haven't been seen previous episodes, we set up a brand new INFINIA. We have a lot of models. 215.5, is that right?
15.5.
Yeah, 215.5 with the silver finish, which has been wildly popular.
It's beautiful.
And we're adding corals, right?
Yep. So the corals bed, I think it was about 2 weeks ago. Everything's happy. I had to move the Yumas down out of the light a bit because they started to lighten up. So they're going to go under shade till they kind of rebound. Everything else has been pretty happy in their spot, so I haven't had to really move anything. So time to add some more stuff. Everything's happy. And we're going along with, in this one, it's going to be a theme of all LPS and soft corals. We're not going to do any hard SPS in here. And the goal is kind of flowy stuff on the top, fill in encrusting stuff on the bottom. It's going to have a lot of movement as it gets filled in. So we're going to start with some of our lower soft corals. Can't go wrong with adding some more zoos in here. So here we go in here.
There you go.
These have a nice blue color to them with the yellow eyes. Gonna have a nice contrast as it grows in. And these are really good growers too. We have them in one or two of our other tanks. So like I said, keeping the lower part of the tank soft and crusting stuff.
These corals
Glue.
are just coming from our existing collection, is that right?
Yep, so these are, come on glue. These are from existing tanks or back in our holding 6-foot frag. I'm gonna put this guy. I'll end up with glue fingers, but that's cool. And if you didn't see our last episode of the studio tour, you gotta check that out because it shows all of our tanks that we have here now. It gives you a nice insight into all the stuff we have here. All right, I'm just trying to wiggle it until it holds into place. So I'm just kind of spreading zoos and stuff all over the tank, so it's going to just give lots of splashes of color. And that's just going to encrust and move all around the rock.
So again, I want to throw out there, we are giving away some swag at the end of this show. But what we want you guys to do is post your questions in the comments. Post them, ask us about INFINIA, ask us about corals, ask us about dosing. Anything that you want to know, that's why we're here live, so definitely.
Yeah. And we have another xanthid here. Nice kind of gold orange with a little bit of green skirts. Gonna add a nice splash of color.
That's nice.
Yeah. And I'm gonna move on down to this end.
I like zoanthids. There's a bajillion different color variations.
Yes.
They can get about as expensive as you want them to be.
You could, yeah, it could. You can pay a couple $100 a polyp if you want. Yeah, no, the great thing is that like you could collect zoanthids probably for your entire life and not run out of color varieties and different looks to them. And quite a while ago, we actually did a full zoanthid tank, and it was beautiful.
I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
That one's gonna go over there, cover it nicely. Yeah, so like zoanthids are just a beautiful group of coral for sure.
What was that tank?
I think it was
There's
the.
like a 35.1, yeah.
I think it might have been 45, the Marine.
Yeah,
X,
it might have been a
Marine
different model at the time,
45.2
yeah.
or something like that. That was a few years ago.
It was like a 2-foot tank. something
Yes,
like
and it was all zoanthids. It's awesome. All right. Along with some soft corals, we have a nice finger leather. This one's got like a really compact, kind of chunky growth appearance to it. Gonna have some nice green polyps. I love leathers because they're easy. They give movement, they give height. Now we're gonna let this guy. Now I try to always do it to where the same types of corals, like if I'm not doing a grouping, that they're kind of separate so they stand out from each other. So he's gonna go front and center up here. I'm just using Ecotech coral glue. This stuff is awesome. Buy a big bottle, it'll last you forever. And it's super nice and thick and it bonds very quickly. And give them somewhere that once we add power heads in here is going to get good flow, which is important for leathers. They're going to put their polyps out a lot better if they have good flow. Oh, hold on. There we go. Now we're going to move into some LPS, like encrusting type stuff in here. With all the parameters being good. I feel like it's common, but I love the coral, is war coral. War coral is nice. It encrusts and it grows pretty fast. And they come in a lot of varieties. So this one is like mostly red with the green eyes. You'll see a little bit of turquoise streaks in it. There's some that's green with red eyes. It reverses. There's some with purple streaks. Comes with a lot of different color varieties. And will encrust really well and like very tight to the rock. Be a good encrusting spot for this guy. Put them on over here. They are a little bit aggressive. They're called war coral. They have some little sweeper tentacles, but they're not super long, but as it grows, it will definitely take its territory.
Is that why they called it the war coral, you
I
think?
believe so. It's not definitely not the most aggressive of corals, but it'll take its territory as it wants. I'm gonna put it in a spot where it kind of, as it encrusts and grows, it's not gonna look like a big chunk was put there. So then it'll just encrust along everything and like blend in real nice. Coral placement's like interior decorating. So you don't have just chunks sitting there that look kind of awkward.
Yeah.
And that bright red will be nice front and center. All right. Now talking about aggressive corals, a very neat coral, but this thing is a little bit rough. So this is Galaxia. It's a big colony of Galaxia we've actually had for quite some time. And it's kind of in mostly, but it gets very fuzzy looking, but you'll see each of those little like star shapes is like an individual polyp with all its tentacles coming out. These guys have sweeper tentacles that are quite large. So you do need to give them plenty of space to grow and not to sting stuff around it. So don't put this somewhere that's, you know, you're gonna have a lot of other corals gonna be right there. I usually try to put it kind of towards a ledge or at the bottom where it doesn't have a lot of reach to other stuff, which I think is actually gonna end up going on this back corner. It'll give a nice kind of pop of color to the side view of the tank, but also will not be able to cause trouble, and there's enough light back there. I'll let you go back. But there's such a cool coral as far as being a lot of movement.
You did put it in the back.
Did. You gotta have stuff on the side view
Yeah,
too.
you can still see it though from the front.
Yep, you can see it through this one cubby as it gets kind of fuzzy. But this is gonna make sure that it's not going off and attacking a ton of other corals in like a main center of a rock or anything.
Yeah.
Because they look all cute, but they're not. They're very mean.
Yeah, they do have very, very long sweeper
Yeah,
tentacles.
so like this one here, like the sweeper tentacles can easily probably get foot and a half and all around it, and
Yeah.
will just defend that space. So give lots of room for Galaxia. A lot of people won't put it in their tank, but I think if you space it right, it's a good choice. All right, and all about the flowy on the top of this tank. So we got a nice, so we're going with all the euphyllias, hammers, Foxbone Torches here. And you're gonna give a lot of movement up at the top. I love this group of coral.
Definitely one of my favorites too.
Let to see where this one has a little bit of peg hole, so I'm actually just gonna try and put him. That's the nice thing about the CaribSea rock is a lot of the arches and pieces actually have frag holes in them. So he's just gonna go in there. And then I might, if I find like a snail's messing, might put some glue on it, but usually they stay in that plug hole pretty well.
Yeah.
And we got a nice big one. We've been growing some of these colonies for a while in our frag system, and they've gotten pretty large. So very similar to that one. This one you can actually has all the individual heads and is branching out. Now, most of the time, these add a lot of green to a tank. So, you know, try and diversify it with some other corals and colors.
That's one of the things I always say. It's very easy to find green corals and then all of a sudden realize that you have way too many green corals.
Yes, you can definitely become overwhelmed with the green. That's why when you get things like war coral and mushrooms and zoos that you can get in the other colors,
Yeah.
definitely utilize them throughout the tank. I'll put him right here. It's gonna fill in that area real nice as he opens up. So we want a lot of movement in this tank. It's in place. I got one more Euphyllia to go in here. So this one here is actually like a darker, and it's almost got like the splatter. So some of the tentacles have like a splattered purple tip, and then the other ones are like a mint green. So a little bit different tone and kind of bicolor look to that one. I think he would go nicely right there, but I need glue. We were talking last time about how popular Euphyllias have gotten. Foxbone Torches especially, I think, are probably the hardest ones to get. But they're very easy. They're easy to keep. They're flowy. And they have a good amount of color varieties and tentacle lengths and stuff. But they used to be like a dime a dozen.
Right. You used
And now
to
they
really
are
get them.
so much more expensive or harder to
Yeah,
get.
you
but
can go buy a full colony for like $70. Now, if you want to get some of the
A head, it could be
varieties
70
ahead,
or more.
it can be hundreds.
So let those open up, get us some more flowy motion in here. So I'm trying not to do, any overload at a time, but that's a good amount to add. Let everything settle. Keep the testing and dosing up, and then kind of continue to add every few weeks.
Looking colorful.
Yeah, it's looking good. So you see, we do have a dominance of kind of a green-yellow in here, so definitely as I get more corals, we're going to work towards other color schemes to kind of break that up.
Yeah,
But it's filling in nicely.
it is.
The
It's looking
Infinia's
really
looking
good.
good. I'm gonna get some more fish in here soon too.
I really like the firefish swimming around.
They're very active. They're
Yeah.
not very shy. They're shy for a day or two, but they're out and about pretty much all the time. So it's time to add a couple more schooling fish that'll utilize all those arches
Yeah.
and swim throughs. Looking good.
Cool, cool. And we are back, just
Boom.
like that. It's magic. It's the,
The
magic
long,
of
the long trek from
the magic
tank.
of television.
Yes, it's a nice thing about the studio. We have
Or-
full open space. Like I said, if you haven't checked it out, definitely see the studio tour we recently did and see all the tanks we have.
Yeah,
That
that was just
awesome.
last week, right?
Last week, yes.
Yeah.
My concept of time is unknown at this point.
Also, I do want to mention that we're dropping. Keenan, is it every Saturday?
Every Saturday morning.
Every Saturday morning, we're dropping a new recorded video, so check that out. But also, we have a freshwater dedicated channel
Yes.
that you guys can check out. I
You
don't know
guys
if
drop
it's
that in the
linked.
comments.
Yeah, maybe they can drop that in the comments again for you. We should put that in the description also. But yeah, check that out. Freshwater,
subscribe
fully
to it.
dedicated to
Yep.
freshwater tanks, so we can give those guys some love.
We're starting at 0 on the subscribe mount, so get
Yeah.
us up there.
Yeah.
We're going to be doing more and more content. Spread the word about it to anyone you know that loves freshwater. So we're just going to keep building up that collection of a lot of great videos on that channel.
Yeah, we have a really big freshwater customer base, and we hear it a lot. We want to see more freshwater on the
Yes.
live. We want to see more freshwater because we tend to be so saltwater heavy on this channel. The live stream is going to stay here, but we're going to do all recorded how-tos, builds, etc. on the freshwater
Yep.
channel. So
Definitely go and subscribe there. I think we're going to do some questions.
we're giving away some swag at the end. We also have these shirts available online too. They're super comfortable. They're like a Nix level tri-blend or something like that. People love them. They're super soft.
They are.
So if you want to pick them up, we have them in like a number of different colors on the website.
Yes.
So
And we'll give some away for those being active in the comments.
Chris is asking, a little off topic, I got a 100.3 over the weekend, and the LFS, which is the local fish store, told me one of the XR15s would cover for mostly softies. What are your thoughts?
Meh. So could you get by with it? Yes. You're going to have a lot of shadowing off to the sides. You're going to need your rock work to be very island centered.
Yeah.
Leaving quite a decent amount on the sides open so that you're not needing a bunch of light. So the XR15, I mean, honestly, I think it has a 24 by 24 roughly footprint for good coverage. You can probably push that to 30, but kind of figure the center of 24 inches is really what you're going to cover. If you need to do that just to get by, for sure it'll work. add another one as you go. But
Yeah.
for the fullest maximization of your aquarium, being able to use all the space and rock work however you want, I would suggest 2.
Yeah. I would agree. Thank you, Chris. Jason's asking, what causes my phosphates to bottom? I've overfed, etc. Having trouble reading that. Overfed, etc. No algae help.
So if your phosphates go too low, so this is more of an issue in like an SPS tank if it bottoms out too low. You want small detectable amounts. If you need to raise your phosphate up, there are some products out there that are meant to increase phosphate. I don't know if I necessarily want to go that route. Increase your feeding. Using coral foods, powdered coral foods and stuff like that tend to help increase the phosphate nitrate a bit. But I try to do it more naturally by waste than anything. Take out any of your GFO or carbon additive, phosphate removal stuff that you're running, and maybe just let them bounce back up a little bit.
Cool. Hi, would you make a video with what you need if it's your first aquarium and what is most necessary? As it can be really hard to find out. I think we have a number of those.
Yeah,
for
so
you.
depending on what size tank you're looking at, we have a lot of builds that are, we recently just dropped the Cube 20, which was from very beginning, and it's all put into one video. It was separated before,
Yeah.
we condensed it into one. And that's from very beginning to stocking, cycling, all of that. We've got frag builds, we've got the LX build. So depending on what size tank you're looking at, I guarantee we have a build that
Very
we've done.
comprehensive builds from A to Z, whether it's 20 gallons or it's 300.
Yeah, so pretty much all those builds, it's from setting it up through all the steps and equipment and everything. So go through the playlists and everything on YouTube, and I'm sure you're going to find something that matches kind of what you're looking at.
Yeah, for sure. Love the Hannah kits. I'm colorblind, so the ability to have digital readouts is amazing. That's a great point.
That is very true. Yeah, I don't think you'd have much choice with the other ones.
Yeah.
So Hannah definitely is simple in that regard for sure.
Yeah.
I thought about that comment a lot because I was like, he's colorblind. What's the most enjoyable part of the hobby since he doesn't get to appreciate the blasting colors from one coral to another?
Yeah, it certainly would be different. Yeah.
Just see it in a different realm.
Yeah. Diva is asking, are you guys going to come out with a Waterbox master test kit for saltwater and freshwater tanks?
It's not a bad idea.
No?
We're always taking ideas, so you never know what we might come up with.
Yep. When doing a water change, should you test?
So whatever salt you're using, definitely check what the level of it is. If you're using a good salt, it should have some pretty good guaranteed analysis of where it should land within for range. But you can always double check that. And if it's much off from what you keep your tank at, you're going to need to kind of dose the salt up and take that in consideration. Because the last thing you want to do is you have keep your alkalinity high, you use a salt that has it low, you do a water change and suddenly it plummets, it will affect your coral. So you want to make sure that they even as close as possible between water change water and tank water.
Should we quarantine corals? Do you recommend? Thanks.
So not really quarantine corals, quarantine fish and stuff, but with corals it's dipping them.
Yeah.
If you really want to get real technical into it, you could quarantine, but I think your best bet is dipping. Get from a good trusted source. Someone that has healthy corals, you can trust that their practices are good. Dip your coral, and then you can basically look around any type of eggs or anything that you see, or when you dip it and you see multiple things come off, you might know that, hey, I should probably keep that out of that tank for a little bit until I figure out if all of it's off, do a continued dipping and see. But it's not quite that same 30-day quarantine as you would with our fish.
Yeah. I think the reality is too that you're going to eventually end up with some sort of pest. If you're in this hobby long enough, you're not going to prevent it, but you can at least put as many preventative measures in place as you can. Like you said, buying from a good supplier, dipping, etc. And
usually if your coral has anything in it, when you dip it, you're going to see the adult come off.
Yeah.
Whereas you then know, okay, flatworm came off. I need to figure out if there's flatworm eggs on here and maybe keep it off separate until you can go through the dipping cycle of those eggs or whatever the pest may be. So.
Yep. Sean's asking, what's your recommendation for pH levels?
I don't check it. I don't. Your pH, if you are keeping your water the way it should be, as far as your alkalinity is kept within range, you have good surface agitation, you've got, you know, water flow, turnover, especially with like protein skimmers and stuff like that, like your pH should stay within range. If you have low pH and you have all those things, it's very difficult to have that. At nighttime, the pH is going to drop a little bit. But if it's consistency is more important than like trying to catch this 8.4. And like I'm always at 8, it's consistent, but I'm always at 8, I'm trying to get to the 8.4, and you're using additives and all this other stuff, and it's just kind of bouncing around. That's worse for your tank than having it sit consistently low, but stable.
Right.
So I think pH is one of those numbers that I don't pay any attention to.
Yeah.
If everything else is good, I know I've got good filtration, good flow, good turnover, you know, that kind of stuff, then I consider it
Also,
good.
Sean, too, that's one of those parameters that if you really wanted to, there's pretty good pH monitors on the market. That you calibrate them, you put them in the water, and you can monitor it all the time if you want.
I feel like chasing pH will make you go nuts. When
It
you have
could.
a probe,
Yeah, I've seen it happen.
Drop
Some
0.3
people
tonight, now it's back up.
driving
and-
themselves crazy trying to chase pH.
Yeah.
They really don't need to.
Yep.
Daniel says, hi, Waterboxx, any plans to make a reef mat compatible sump?
Every week.
Yes, you guys have been extremely loud about that request. And sure, I'm sure we will,
Yeah.
you know, so appreciate that question. I mean, as the sumps stand right now, you can use a roller mat.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
nothing stopping you from
There's
using
some
a
that
roller
drop
mat.
right into the filter sock holder. The
Yeah.
other ones you can cut the filter sock plate out,
Yeah.
and they fit in. So it's definitely easy modifications that can be made to our current sumps.
Yeah, and I've seen people even, you know, with our, at the very least, our reef models, they're running the skimmer, and right next to it's a filter mat, and they're running socks. So
Yeah.
Fish Pony, is that place really that silent, or is it part of the video equipment canceling it out? My house sounds like a whole ocean. It's pretty quiet, but yeah, we do have noise canceling microphones.
Yeah. So I mean,
Right.
overall,
A little
it's-
bit? You can hear it a little bit?
A little bit of compression.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
Quiet.
Overall, it's very quiet. Figuring that we have, I don't know, 9, 10 tanks in here. There's a little bit of sound. I can tell that one of my tanks, I need to adjust the overflow slightly. The other sound that you hear is skimmers. The skimmers are the loudest part of our tanks, and they're not even that loud. It's just kind of a hum. But if I ever shut down skimmers all at the same time, you'll notice a difference.
Yeah.
But overall, it's
It is very quiet.
very quiet in here.
I think what we hear the most are ATO beeps.
ATO beeps, yes,
Yeah.
when it tells me that it's topping off. And
Yeah, that's the thing with the way that we designed our plumbing. If you're pushing the appropriate amount of flow through them, they really shouldn't be that loud. Like you
No.
said, what you're going to hear most is like the skimmer or something like that.
Yeah.
If it is very loud, maybe consider not pushing as much flow through. We try to push less flow through the return line and more through power heads to get
Right.
the flow that we need. So,
Yep.
tips for placing hammers. I heard they can be aggressive. Thanks.
I mean, hammers, they can have a certain, like, sweeper tentacles, but they don't go that far. And, you know, for the most part with them, they branch up and are higher. So even if you have stuff kind of down laying low, you're usually pretty good. So you can surround encrusting type stuff around a hammer. And you can put hammers and frog spawns and torches generally in the same proximity as well. And they don't tend to fight. There are some exceptions to that rule. But hammers I don't find like are actively trying to attack anything. But they do have little sweeper tentacles that come out that if it doesn't come in contact, could cause some sting, but they're not like a heavy duty sting where it's gonna like kill off a coral all that easy.
Yeah. Thank you, Manzo. Oh, got a doorbell.
Doorbell.
I'm seeing this tank for the first time. Are there wave makers?
Not right now. So that's part of what we're going to be adding to it. I want to do some videos and stuff on flow and that kind of stuff. So we're going to be adding those. But 100% we will be adding power heads to the aquarium. Any of our large systems always run them because they're
Yeah.
extremely important. It's actually one of our topics coming up soon.
Yeah. Cool.
And deliveries like to happen during our show now.
Amazon.
Yeah. Yeah. How many lights for a Reef 220.6 or a Peninsula 7225? So I want to touch on this just a little bit. If you're on our website and you're shopping for a new tank, we have what we call the Plus Edition. So right below where you choose the color of the cabinet, there's going to be a lighting system, and we've done the homework for you. Keenan, and it still says at the bottom of the website what each one includes, or are we doing that just?
No, we did
Oh,
try that because we
okay.
wanted to make sure that it was as simple as possible. It's just that.
Yeah, so I just wanted to let you know that, Ethan, because when you go to any particular product, there's a lighting kit there, and
Yep.
it's predefined for exactly what we use here in the studio or what you would need. And I don't know if you want to elaborate on how many of those.
Yeah, so if you already have your system and you want to add lights or upgrade your lights, for a 6-foot tank, 3 is going to be your best bet. Could be hydras, the radions, whichever. 3 is still going to be the proper coverage. Now, if you were like maxing out SPS top to bottom, you could probably put 4 on there, but it probably might be overkill. So generally 3 and you are set.
Yeah. Great question. Brian's asking, thoughts about setting up a Cube 20 Nano Reef and using it as a quarantine or a hospital tank?
Okay, so it depends on what you're trying to quarantine or hospitalize, because if it's a reef tank and you have a sick fish, it's no better than being in your own aquarium because you can't treat it with anything. So most of your medications for a sick fish or disease are going to be not coral or invert safe. So generally quarantine or hospital tanks are just bare glass, maybe like some PVC or hides, because you're going to be dosing medication that leaches into rock, will kill inverts, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Now if it's like a nano reef to quarantine corals into, then you would just have to worry about if they had a pest getting to your other ones. So I wouldn't. So quarantine and hospital tanks should be basic. They don't house inverts, they don't house coral. It's just to put stuff in, monitor, and treat as needed.
Got one more question, but I also want to throw out there, people keep asking about the Reef Lx.
The Reef Lx, that is such a popular topic.
Every week as well.
The Reef, yeah, so a lot of people are wondering, where's the Reef Lx, sorry. As many of you probably know, we made some technical modifications to
Yep.
it. They're now larger, they're now have a CNC Euro brace. That compounded with holidays around the world, it's a little bit delayed, more delayed than we wanted it to be. They are in production, so we're hoping that they should be here sometime late June, July, around there.
Yeah, so they're in production, so once we know when they're going to be on their way is when we'll give
we'll open up
better
pre-orders for 'em.
announcement and pre-order and stuff like that. But delays are part of life in this world now, man. So
Yeah, delays on every facet
Every
of
industry, everything.
everything you could imagine. It doesn't matter what it is. That compounded with the technical modifications.
It's a work in progress. Soon,
Yeah.
I promise.
Yeah. If I could snap my fingers and they'd be here.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, great question.
All right.
Last question.
Last question.
Dave's asking, will Waterboxx have a loyalty program for us that want multiple tanks? I sure would love about 4 to 6 Waterboxx tanks for different builds.
You
You
go,
are-
Chapman.
Yeah, great question. Yes, we will.
No.
You just threw it out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret. I've been
I seen your social.
Yeah, if you guys follow me on Instagram. So yes, we will very soon. So keep an eye out for that. It's going to be a pretty cool program that we've tailored for Waterboxx specifically. So keep an eye out very soon.
Awesome.
I
Perfect.
wasn't expecting that one.
Yeah, yeah. I've been posting some stuff on my Instagram.
Yeah, I've seen that. I was like, oh, I guess.
First, I sampled them. I was like, "Do you want it? Do you want a rewards program?" And they're like, "Yes, absolutely." Now that was a while ago.
Yeah, and then recently you're like,
Yeah.
rewards program coming soon or something.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna throw one more thing out there. That person, Chris Meyer, who asked the initial question of whether 1G5 is enough for that 100.3, his internet dropped out, and he's like asking the question again and again.
Oh.
So if you want to clarify whether the XR15 G5 Blue is enough,
For the 100.3. All right, what's his name?
is Chris Myers.
Chris Myers. Okay, if you missed whenever I answered your question, is I give the light about a 24 by 24 footprint. So you would want to center your rock towards the middle. Your outside's going to be shadowed, not really keeping much out there. Ideally, you want 2, but you can definitely make 1 work. But just know you've got basically center of the tank, and then 6 inches on each side. That's going to be pretty shadowed.
Yeah. So if you budget constraint, go with 1 in the beginning and then
And you can
upgrade,
always upgrade later.
upgrade to another one later
Yep.
on.
All right, perfect.
Who wants to win some swag?
Some shirts? All right, got some shirts.
Giving away some swag.
And ready? There we go.
Waterboxx drum roll. Dave Chapman on YouTube and Chris Meyer on Facebook. Congratulations, you two. Email winners@waterboxaquariums.com. They will get you hooked up with your new swag.
Yep, and you'll love these shirts, and you want to buy more because they're so comfortable.
Yeah.
So, thank you for tuning in, and make sure you subscribe, all that.
Yeah, I see a lot of you guys in here. If you haven't already, do us a huge favor and smash that like button. Helps us out tremendously. We are here every week, so make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. What are we talking about next week? Flow?
Flow. So as a person's question, we're going to talk about flow, why it's so important in a reef tank, and all of that good stuff. So make sure you tune in then.
Cool. Thank
See
you,
ya.
everyone. Thank you all for watching. Make sure you smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Remember, you can visit us online at waterboxaquariums.com.
We're live every Wednesday. Thanks for watching. See you next week.